Welcome back. Thursday here on Squawk Age, an Australian fintech company providing blockchain-based guarantees for business transactions is expanding to Singapore. Lygon is backed by a couple of big Australian banks, ANZ, Westpac, also CommBank. So fintech companies help facilitate bank guarantees for trade transactions, shortening the facilitation to just 1 day from up to a month before. Lygon says it picked Singapore as its first overseas foray because of its ASEAN or Southeast Asian hub status. Justin Amos joins us right now. He is CEO at Lygon, live down Sydney side. Justin, good to see you.
Hi,
appreciate
Justin.
your time. Hope you're keeping safe where you are, and congratulations on coming into or getting into the Singapore market. And this is almost exactly 12 months after you actually started up, right?
Yeah, well, that's 12 months since we did our first public launch of the network, but Lygon's been in the making since 2016. So quite a lot of water's flowed under the bridge before then.
Okay, so why Singapore for first port of call expanding outside Australia?
Well, as you already kind of pointed out, the size of the Singaporean market with respect to trade guarantees and bank guarantees is voluminous. Largest, ex-China, is largest in the entire side of the world. But also, quite importantly, there's a lot of business flow between Singapore and Australia as well, and that requires a lot of bank guarantee flow as well. And there's a lot of business, not just between the banks, but just between companies on both sides of that particular bridge. And so it's on us to provide the rails, if you will, or the infrastructure to help facilitate that and make improvements in that, along with the other improvements that are going on in trade more broadly.
Justin, you were approached by financial institutions in Australia and Singapore to make sure this was a priority. Can you let us into any conversations and client negotiations you may be having or you have had here in Singapore?
Well, without naming names,
Sure.
the way this works is you need to have like a concentration of issuers, because this is a complete change to the standards or the systems that are in place. And here in Australia, there's a bearer certificate is what actually underpins bank guarantees. And to be able to change a system to go from paper to digital, you need the entire system to adapt to that, or adopt it rather. And to do that, you sort of have to engineer standards and get the issuers to agree to standards. Otherwise, you're kind of not really getting the benefits that are possible by going digital. So that's why you correctly pointed out 3 of the large 4 banks here in Australia are shareholders and have been on the journey from the get-go, trying to solve a problem for customers. And it's the same kind of players, same kind of banks that dominate the issuance of guarantees in Singapore as well. And also the location of non-Singaporean banks that are actually based in Singapore. So Japanese, Chinese, Malaysian banks who are in there that are doing business out of Singapore that are then doing what's called fronting of guarantees into Australia as well. So they're quite a broad range, but a concentrated range. They're the ones that we need to focus on the issuance of it. But then you also have to look at the beneficiaries, who are the holders of these instruments.
Justin, I've got to say, though, in the Singapore context, when you look at a bank like DBS, they are such a trailblazer. They're well ahead in terms of the digital conversation and the transformation. Haven't they already developed these capabilities and capacities of bringing bank guarantees into the digital era themselves? So is what you're doing more of process refinement? And if you can also tell us what sort of productivity gains the banks can expect if they use your platform?
Yeah, there's certainly in Singapore being very advanced in its adoption of fintech because of the regulatory environment and the backing by MAS and the Singapore Fintech Association and other agencies. Yeah, there's definitely been innovation in this space, but we're bringing infrastructure. We're bringing network infrastructure as well as the kind of like the user layer to this. And the difference that we have is that we basically turn the guarantee itself into ones and zeros. Okay, it is a legally enforceable guarantee in its digital form, and that's the difference, right? So there's quite a few people around the world that have got UIs that you might type in data, but then that just goes to paper. Whether it's an email, PDF, or otherwise, it's still paper. And the difference we have here is we're actually legally enabling the demand of a digital guarantee. So it's full end-to-end digital. And that's the difference. And yes, we're not only speaking to the large banks in Singapore, but also their branches here in Australia as well. So there's 40 foreign bank branches here in Australia who at some different degree have been approached or are approaching us, and we're working through that on how to evolve the way they actually issue, manage, audit, amend digital guarantees. And these are all the things you can't really do with paper. So there are differences in what we do. We're an infrastructure as much as a marketplace for guarantees.
And it's the blockchain that powers everything that you do. Justin, I'm afraid we're just out of time. We've got to leave it there, sir. Thank you very much indeed. Fascinating conversation. Justin Amos there from Lygon.